Hi, my name is Shlomi Ron. I'm the co-founder of the Visual Storytelling Institute. We're based here in sunny Miami, Florida. We are actually the only visual marketing think tank that combines the power of storytelling with the effectiveness of visual media. We help you, the marketer, the entrepreneur, to rise above the communication noise with personalized visual storytelling workshops. And we do that using our signature 9-step My Visual Story framework. So you can connect better with your audience, empower their lives, and grow your company. Today, I'm super excited to have a fantastic guest on our show. The reason for that is that when you look at the stats, at least according to Cisco, video is expected to make up to 80% of internet traffic by 2019. So video has become a dominant tactic in marketers' toolbox, pretty much for every stage in the buyer's journey. So when you think about it, video is really the most accessible visual medium today that lets your audience reenact real-life events, but remotely. So with that, I'm so excited to have on our show one of the top experts in the B2B video storytelling space, Tyler Lessard. He is the VP of Marketing at Vidyard. Welcome to the show, Tyler.
Great, thank you, Shlomi. A real pleasure to be here. Love having me on. I really appreciate it, and I really loved your introduction and the point of using visual storytelling, visual marketing as a way to stand out from the noise and connect with audiences today. Because it's, for me, I come from the B2B world, and it's equally, if not more important in B2B today as it is in B2C. So love that angle, and really excited to be here.
Yeah, so no, this is something that we are constantly evangelizing in any platform we make, that, the story, you start with the story and the visual comes after. So you got to have a strong story. So speaking about story, I'm kind of curious, how did you get started in video marketing? Is your backstory?
Yeah, my backstory is a little bit unconventional in this space. So I actually started off as an engineer. I went to University of Waterloo's systems design engineering graduate. I started off in software. I was a software developer when I came out of school, and slowly migrated more towards working with a community of developers, more in the support capacity as well as in the evangelism capacity. And what I learned early on was I was an okay coder, but not great. But what I was better at was working with others to help them understand, how to overcome challenges and how to use the technology to create value. And I very quickly found myself much more in like a product marketing role, where I was also helping our own teams understand what kinds of APIs and services do we need to build to help the developers do what they wanted to do. And actually, that was my very early exposure to this art of storytelling, where I would go out and evangelize to the developer community. And this was at Blackberry, actually, in the early days of mobile apps.
I was about to ask if you were connected to Blackberry, because the moment you said Waterloo,
yeah, so I was supporting mobile app developers before apps were apps. This was back in 2001, 2002, when it was like the first mobile web browsers and things like that. And a lot of that job was out there evangelizing in the community, helping them understand the opportunity on mobile, how to build a distinctive application that delivered unique value. And I really was drawn to that notion of telling those stories to show people, here's the art of the possible with what you can do today and the kinds of value you can bring into the market. And of course, the features and functions supported that, but I really thrived on that. And many years later, here I am. I continued to move over to the side of marketing. And a lot of that, honestly, was fueled by my love of storytelling and of engaging audiences in interesting conversations.
This is fascinating. So in essence, you come from a very technical background, and you did a switch to more kind of a business marketing, in essence. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a better man for it, I must say. I really, I really enjoy where I am today. And a lot of it comes from the, again, it's both the storytelling as well as focusing on that audience empathy and really, trying to understand what are people trying to accomplish? Again, what is that art of the possible? And how do we help them get there? How do we communicate a story to them that helps them get there? And just so happens in the world of tech, I felt I was pretty good at doing that by translating the possibilities of the technology into the art of what you could do with it. And so I love this world of B2B, but also specifically B2B tech, where you can sort of get a good understanding of the value and capabilities of the technology, but explain it in ways that are all about the value to an audience or to end.
Sure. No, for sure. So that brings up another question that we keep asking our guests. How would you define visual storytelling? Obviously, it's a new label for a methodology that the cavemen already applied on their cave wall, right?
Right.
I think the big changes obviously is the emergence of social media, mobile, and the need to produce and consume. So how would you, in your world, how would you define visual storytelling? And if you can relate to a subcategory, which is our topic for today, B2B video storytelling.
Yeah, so I mean, visual storytelling to me is really all about, how do we convey messages? How do we convey ideas? How do we engage audiences through, means of, different modes of communication, different modes of messaging, and ultimately storytelling, but in a way that is visually engaging, and most importantly about that is emotionally stimulating. And I think that's a big part to creating visual experiences.
Yep.
Is it goes way beyond traditional text-based to provide a heck of a lot more information and greater value information in a shorter period of time, but to also stimulate different emotions, which help us with memorability of content and processing of information and association and relevance and all those kinds of things that fall short with text. And if you put the B2B slant on it, what's interesting in the B2B world, there is this renaissance happening of everybody moving from, text-based descriptions of features and functions to more visual storytelling about value and benefits and what you can help companies achieve in pains and gains. And what I find interesting about, storytelling and visual storytelling in B2B is, there's a big opportunity there to connect with people in ways that salespeople always have, which is emotional and personal. Right. But also in B2B, it's very different from the consumer world, where in the consumer world, a lot of visual storytelling is about entertainment, right? In B2B, it can be entertaining, but that's not the purpose of people seeking out your information, right? People are coming to you for education primarily, right? Whether it's to understand the art of the possible or to understand what you do as a business or how you do it. And so storytelling takes a bit of a different twist in the world of B2B, where, yeah, it's great to entertain, but the most important thing is that you are delivering high value information in a way that people can understand, in a way that people can relate back to their own personal and business lives, and in a way that drives action to the next step you're trying to take, which of course, as a business, you're typically trying to move people down that buyer's journey. So again, I think very different thinking has to go into it of what is the end goal of the information you're trying to deliver, and how can I use a visual medium to educate and to, convince and convert an audience member.
Yeah, and I think also to your point, there's a lot of probably misconception in the marketplace that marketers think that when you deal with B2B, it's got to be super cold, kind of impersonal interaction.
Right.
Where, this whole movement of H to H, human to human is really tried to kind of disprove that and kind of, as you said, focus more on the personality of that CMO, that decision maker that needs to make an informed decision. And in the process, as you said, really providing educational value, but it's part of a bigger narrative. It's not just brought to you as a sales message.
Well, what's really interesting that's happened is if you flip and you look at the consumer B2C world, in the consumer B2C world, marketers effectively had the job of selling, right? You had to, you were the one building demand, and people would go out and buy it, right? There was the human one-to-one sale was just usually taking the transaction, right? But they had to sell you. They had to get you to want to buy that product. And in the B2B world, because we have direct sales teams who are handling one-to-one sales, marketing was typically viewed as, oh, your job is to build awareness and to support our sales team. And our sales team are the real heroes of the company. And they're the ones who are going to engage. They're the ones who are going to tell the stories, who are going to connect.
Yeah, the closers.
They're gonna, and then they're going to close, right? And what's happened, of course, over the last, 5, 10, 15 years is, with the new digital buying journeys, that's totally changed. And now, we've all seen the stats of, buyers typically do about 80% of the buyer's journey by themselves online before they engage with a sales rep. And they're usually already down to maybe 2 or 3 possible solutions before they even reach out to a sales rep. And so our job as B2B marketers is very different from what it was 10, 15 years ago. It's not just about top of funnel awareness. We actually have to do what sales teams did for a long time, which was, again, build that personal rapport, educate those audience members, get them excited about what we do, get them interested in us as a brand, and then, again, get sales involved to help move that deal forward. But we're as responsible now, I think, for selling as we are for marketing. And I think that's where storytelling becomes so important, because we can't rely on a one-to-one sales rep to tell a story and to connect personally. We've got to do that as marketers now.
Absolutely. Yeah. So looking at 2018, that it's coming up, and I'm sure some of the marketers listening right now or watching are looking to revamp their 2018 strategy, and obviously video is an important component. For those who kind of still on the sideline or did some work in video, what would you say why video is so vital in crafting a business story or your video storytelling strategy?
Yeah, I mean, we continue to see from, market trends, stats, talking to companies, all sources of data that we see point to the fact that video, helps to generate better conversions all throughout the buyer's journey. And honestly, it's as simple as that. If you're not using video as part of your awareness building and top of funnel programs, if you're not using it, mid funnel in nurture cycles to educate audiences and to connect with them, if you're not using it late in the buyer's journey for things like, customer testimonials, things like that, you're missing a piece of your arsenal that could very well, boost your conversions and help you generate more business. And so it's, the risk is really, of not using it and what that could mean. But I think for a lot of people, it's, we're at the point now where, a lot of people get it and they know, video is an important part of my mix. But how do I do it, and how do I do it effectively? And that's the biggest challenge we're seeing with most companies. And they're trying to understand, where does it best fit in that buyer's journey? Where can I get the biggest bang for my buck? And how do I need to change my approach to content to embrace video as a storytelling medium and a visual medium, not just as a different way to tell the same story? And that's something that I try to educate a lot of people on, is videos in B2B isn't just a different way to tell the same story you've been telling. It's a way to tell a new, bigger, bolder story, right? It's a way to, people have to think about, how do I use the medium to its advantage, right? Again, as a visual medium, it gives you these opportunities to be more personal, to be more human, to instill, laughter or inspiration or more human stories into our mix. And so a lot of B2B marketers, that's kind of where I'm at, is helping them understand there is a bit of a change of mindset you have to think about. And the old content types are still important, but as you think about where does video play, it's all through the buyer's journey. It's across all your different programs, your email marketing, your advertising, your nurture programs, your sales enablement, your website. It's part of all of those. But how are you going to use it to its advantage? How are you going to take advantage of this unique medium to create more interest from people, to redefine how they think about your brand compared to what you do with text-based content with infographics and other things?
Yeah. So one of the things that I really liked that you did at the Chalk Talk series, that you kind of, it's a fantastic, very simple way that kind of borrows from the world of the classroom, and it's very accessible, and the illustrations really makes the information super clear. And I think that it's a great example. Maybe if you kind of use that vision of the Chalk Talk series and kind of paint a picture for marketers in the audience here, when you look at the buyer's journey, and this is something that I picked up from your Chalk Talk series, is what would you say, like on a very broad strokes, are the business objectives that tie to each stage in the buyer's journey, from the awareness, mid funnel and bottom of the funnel, just so we can paint a picture of how video is adapting itself? So I kind of think of it as 3 main stages to simplify things. So you've got the interest and awareness stage, and that's where, of course, you're doing
broader outreach, you may probably have more dependence on things like social and third-party channels, as well as your
Yeah.
blog for driving inbound. This is about engaging new audiences. And to your earlier point, standing out, making them want to take notice and lean into your message. And this is where using video, almost in the B2B world, I almost think about it as our version of like mini online commercials, right?
Mhm.
And it's about, using it to build interest in perhaps a theme or a topic that we're talking about. It might be in a specific, resource or other video or ebook that we've launched, right? So we'll often do this where, we do a few research reports throughout the year that we'll publish. And
Mhm.
a big part of our attraction and interest is promoting those reports and also producing little videos as ways to promote them. And we often, not surprisingly, see more engagement through the videos than just going out and saying, check out this great research report, right? And the videos might just be 30-second, 20-second social clips highlighting a few of the key stats, and then the call to action to check out the full report.
And what type of videos are you using? Is it like just talking heads, or is it like dramatized narrative, or what it is? What is it?
Yes, 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 and yes. I mean, I think what's interesting, and we're trying to live this here, and we see a lot of companies living it, is that you've got to try different things with video. B, there's never a one size fits all. It's just like with other content. Different people are going to gravitate towards different styles, different narratives. But also, you have to set yourself up to be able to do these things at scale without a huge budget. And so you mentioned like what kinds. Well, we have 2 in-house video producers in our team. I feel very lucky and blessed for that.
Yeah.
But we're a relatively small company, but we have an in-house producer, and he will. For that, he's adept at creating quick motion graphic videos, and those are kind of neat for research reports where you can do some graphics to pop up different stats. We'll also do kind of talking head style. Sometimes I'll just grab I'll stand in front of a whiteboard or a chalkboard and I'll write some of the key findings, and you'll record me talking about it. And in other times we'll do a quick little narrative style, maybe a skit that's more humor based, right? So it's like poking fun at one of the key pain points that the research report focuses on. And so maybe you'll see somebody like really frustrated, and then there'll be some sort of fun cut in it, and somebody else who's being successful, and there's humor in sort of the paradox between these two. Anyway, so the long story short is we'll do all of those in-house with our video producer and our own employees as actors. Sometimes works, sometimes doesn't.
Sure.
But we'll try each of them, and again, they all have their own place, and also they have their different place on different channels. We find on things like Twitter, the quick motion graphic videos tend to do better. On Facebook, the kind of humanized conversation works better, and then the sort of skit-based ones tend to work well in our email marketing campaigns for people who may already be familiar with our brand, but now they're like, oh great, I've got an opportunity to laugh, and then they laugh, and then they go, actually this sounds interesting, and they lean into it. So again, different styles may work on different channels, and so we find experimenting is really important.
But from your experimentation, and I'm sure it's probably going to be super subjective in each business. You got to test it and see what works. But did you find any kind of general rules of thumb that certain styles work specifically for awareness stage versus mid and bottom?
Yeah, I think at the higher level awareness stage, I think live action tends to generally work better, and things that are again a bit more personal and a bit more. We find entertainment works really well in our market, and so we try to do some great top of funnel videos that pique people's interest, hopefully get them to laugh, make them want to share it, but then kind of breaks down that barrier of that B2B kind of formal block, and it really helps instill the humanity of who we are and what we do.
Sure.
And I think that goes a long way in building that relationship. So I often find that works well at top of the funnel. And then things like motion graphic tend to work really well at that next stage of early education. So now, great, people are aware of you, but quick animated videos as explainers on your website, again, as ways to promote specific reports or webinars or things that you want to re-engage somebody with. They can work really well because now they can be really informational very quickly with the way that you can cut them.
And you have a larger bandwidth to basically deliver more information. You're not really limited.
That's right. Yeah, and you can start to get a little bit longer, and then as you move into sort of heavier education, I think that's where a mix of content types works really well. So both, customer testimonial videos, so getting customers telling their stories on camera, things like whiteboard videos and chalk talks. I'll just quickly pop up here if I can. I'll see if this works. Our chalk talk videos that you mentioned, and what I find really interesting about this. So here's a hub that we've got, and each week we launch these different. They're called chalk talks, and you can see here we've got different categories, and there's a number of these that we've created, and they're very educational. They're each about 5 to 10 minutes in length. And I find what's really interesting about these is, most importantly, they're very quick and easy to do, right? So we do these just in-house. We got a camera on a tripod, some lighting, and we drop the chalkboard. Yeah, and just the visual nature of the chalkboard gives, I think, gives it a much more appeal than me walking through some slides or things like that. And so it's become really effective. And but again, something we can create weekly with no incremental budget, and the amount of time it takes to create it and produce it is about the same time as it would take to write a blog post each week. And so it's a different way, and it's worked really, really well for us, both for drawing people in as well as a tool for education and nurturing.
Yeah, I think really what works here is the platform is very familiar to the audience. They feel like they're in a classroom. And the information is super visual, so it always goes into what we also do in our consulting. Sometimes it's called real-time visual story. So basically, instead of a presenter just going through PowerPoints, there is an illustrator that actually draw.
Right. I love that.
Story.
Yeah.
So this is the same thing. Obviously, not doing it in real time, but the flow of the discussion allows people to really follow the different elements of the conversation. So I think this is a great way to get people to learn simple B2B video storytelling principles fairly quickly and try it themselves. So this is something that, I really enjoyed watching a few episodes.
Yeah, and the thing that I've really been happy about with it is both it is a great means of sort of inbound leads and again for nurturing our audience, but it's also become our number one kind of content type and series for our sales team, using in one-to-one conversations with prospects. And so I hear it, I mean, literally weekly and sometimes daily, where I get a note from somebody from our sales team saying, thanking me for because I produced a lot of them, and so they'll be like, thanks so much for doing that chalk talk on topic A, B, or C. I just had a customer ask about that, and instead of writing a big long email, I just sent them to that chalk talk and said, here, quick, watch this. And that's where that's where a lot of the ideas come from as well, is right from our sales team, where it's like, what questions are people asking you that you find you have to answer repeatedly, or what obstacles are they coming up against, or what are some roadblocks customers are asking about, and let's do a visual chalk talk to answer that question. We publish it on our blog, but then our sales team uses it all the time in customer conversations. Right. And that to me is a sign of a good piece of marketing content when your sales team actually thanks you for it, which is to me was like one of those great moments. You're like, all right, we got sales is on board and they're using it. So yeah, again, I think a great example, and they love that format, and we hear that again from people of instead of a written long blog post, this short form video. And I've even had customers who have pinged me and again said thanks for the content, but they've also said they printed out screenshots of the chalkboard and just put them up in their queue, because it's a quick reminder,
yeah,
in one quick visual, just like an infographic would be, which I think is part of the power as well.
Yeah, and I think it also kind of indicates a kind of transition of a lot of companies today from becoming like the traditional B2B that focus on a specific function they provide, right, to transforming themselves into what I call media companies, because
absolutely
they produce content. And within this media world, it's also, you start seeing that emergence, and you are probably the best example of that, of becoming sort of like a educational organization, where you lead first by providing educational value, and once people get the value, then they consider hey, these guys also have a video platform we might want to check out.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a big part, I think, for a lot of B2B companies now, and is that war for mind share. And it's back to that very first point of cutting through the noise and getting people's attention, because it's harder than ever, right? We've really democratized the use of
Yep.
social media, of blogs, of content, right? And we've gone from it being a premium to it being just everywhere. And the currency is no longer content, right? The currency is attention. And so we've got to think of neat ways to do that, and to kind of refuel some of our inbound strategies and things like this of how we educate the market. A lot of this is also driven by by SEO keyword strategies, right? So what are some of the things that people are searching for, and again, how can we create a visual piece or a video or a narrative around that specific topic? And I was actually doing a podcast with somebody from Schneider Electric just a couple of weeks ago, and they had a very similar story where they built out a kind of an energy university where it was, again, a lot of the content and videos they had been building up over a period of time, and then they repurposed them all as this kind of educational university where you could come in, register, and they, within 18 months or so, they had like hundreds of thousands of registrations into this educational curriculum, which again, it became, I think, one of their top lead sources. A lot of people were just there, were never going to be buyers, but there were certainly quite a few that ended up converting into opportunities. And it's again, I think, a great story of how as marketers we need to start by providing value to our audience, to educate them, to deliver true value, not just value of here's what we do, but answering the questions they're trying to answer, and then build that trust. And again, doing it through video also helps build trust, which is a whole other topic we can talk about. And then working them through, and like you said, we're going to be top of mind when they think about a video solution.
Yeah, no, this is so true. So when we have marketers in the audience right now that considering, 2018, I'd like to start my video marketing strategy. So can you give us like a walkthrough, how they can get started, what business objective they should set, what KPI they should consider?
Yep. Yeah, no, I'm glad you asked it that way, because the answer is don't do video just for the sake of doing video, because it will fail. Because if you don't have the ability to match it back to your business goals and metrics, then it's all for naught. So I always encourage people, start with, if you're going into a new year like 2018, what are some of the big priorities within your business? And for a lot of people, it might be, I need more leads. Some, it might be, I need better conversion rates and better performance of my engagement and nurtures with existing prospects. Some of it might be, we need to, increase our close rate and help our sales team be more effective. There are different goals you might have, and try to align where you're going to create video to some of those top priorities, so it can have the bigger bang for the buck. So first of all, think about that. So pick one or two spots in your priority stack to say, yep, these are ones where video could really help to increase performance. So I think that's one angle. The second angle that I just encourage everybody is just start on your website. Like I still, most people, you go to your own website. If you're listening to this, watching this right now, here's my challenge, right? Go to your website, go through the different pages of your site, and then close your browser and think about it for a minute, and then ask yourself, how did that really make you feel going through your own website, right? Like, was it informational? Probably, right? Most websites do a great job of information, sometimes too much.
Right.
But how did it make you feel, right? Like, did you walk away going like, wow, I'm like, I'd be excited to work with this company, or get a friend or a colleague or a spouse to do it, right? Go through your website and say, but don't ask them, what did you learn? Ask them, how do you feel walking away from that? And I think that's where, again, video and visual storytelling has such a big impact. And think about, on your customer page, are there customers telling their stories on camera to get you excited, right? Are there those like emotional, I call them the fizz moments, where you feel the fizziness inside when you're like, you're really touched by a piece of content? Do you feel more connected to that brand because maybe you've actually interacted with people from that company in their videos? So I think those are the two things I often encourage. One is, what challenges are you facing where video could really help? And second is your website, and where could video help to boost the personality of your brand, but also ultimately increase conversion rates on your website to whatever it is you're trying to convert people to. It might be request a demo, it might be sign up for something, whatever it is.
And do you have any kind of a success criteria that people should watch for?
It's so the ultimate success criteria is always back to what were the goals of that video,
Uh-huh.
which in most cases it's probably for a B2B marketer, it's probably leads and pipeline and revenue.
Yeah.
But that stuff can be tough to measure, especially in the near term. And so some of the leading indicators are, if it's content on your website, are you seeing high engagement in the video itself? So
Mhm.
track the actual engagement in the asset, not just number of views, but are
Right.
people staying past halfway or towards the end? Is time on that page increasing as a result of that video? Are conversion rates on that page increasing as a result of that video? So don't just think about the video itself. Think about what's the program or asset or page or whatever it is that's tied to, and is that performing better? Look at your email marketing, right? So if you're doing email nurtures or email marketing, try adding in some short videos into those, and do those email campaigns perform better than others?
Even
So I
though
think a lot of
video in email is kind of challenging, isn't it?
Yeah, what most B2B marketers do is it's about embedding a thumbnail image,
Yes.
a nice big juicy thumbnail image, which when
Mm.
clicked takes you to the page to watch the video.
Got it.
And you can do things like animated GIFs to make it at least look like a video and things like that. So those things tend to work in B2B. But that's again where I think, don't think about, how can this video on its own be successful? Think about, where can I have the biggest impact, which programs, and is using video helping to contribute to those results of those different programs.
Interesting. Yeah, no, this is definitely things that every market could watch for, and especially when you start fresh with obviously what we keep preaching in our workshop is that you got to first define your meta story. What is the overarching business narrative that you're trying to
Mm-hmm.
accomplish? And then use video. This is falling under our story visualizing phase. Mini stories that support your overall business story. And this is something that is really coming from real life events, things that really happened. And we also like to say that any great visual story is, in essence, functions like a mirror.
Yep.
Because once your audience can see themselves in your story and specifically see their problem in your story, the story stops becoming yours and it becomes their story. So your challenge is really making that video, that infographic, whatever visual narrative you choose, reflect the problem your audience is trying to solve. So it's not about you. You're just the guiding, the trusted advisor here. It's all about the customer playing the hero.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't have said it better. And the last thing I'll say on that is, I find focusing, at least in B2B, focusing on the pain of your audience rather than the gain you're going to give them is often a much better approach. And we always, as marketers, we like to go back to, oh, here's all the great things you could do with our solution. But people aren't trying to, inherently, they're not looking for something new. And they can't, it's hard for them to relate to that, but they can very quickly relate to solving a pain or a problem that they have today. And so I think, put yourself in that mindset when you think about what is your narrative and how can videos help to peel back that narrative. It's, what are the pains my audience might be feeling, and how can we bring that to life and help them relate to that pain? And then if you get them, great, then you can educate them further. But start with the pain, not the gain, and you'll often see better results.
One thing kind of related to this, you mentioned narrative styles. What are your thoughts on really, in terms of video storytelling techniques? Obviously, we are, I would say, like almost a generation of advertising history that is leveraging what is known as inadequacy marketing, based on fear, creating fear with the audience.
Right.
Unless you buy our product, you're going to feel weakened.
Right.
And on the flip side, we have what we know as the empowerment marketing, like brands from Apple, Nike, that kind of in all their messages try to empower their audience. So where do you see the balance between those two disciplines in your narrative style?
Yeah, it's I mean, I think both have their place, and it depends in some cases, I think, on the market, on the company, on your position within the market, kind of where you're coming from a competitive landscape. So I don't think there's necessarily one answer that is correct for everybody. I know in our business, I can give you perspective of, a big focus for us, we're in an emerging market, and there's a lot of education to be done to help people understand again, the art of the possible of what you can do with somebody like Vidyard. They're not coming looking for it, right? They're not looking, like in the case of Apple, people are looking for, a laptop. They're looking for a smartphone, right? So they're in a pull market, and so they can be more aspirational because they're not trying to build or fuel the demand. They're trying to
The brand
serve it,
equity is so high.
right? And so, but in our case, we're doing more to build an emerging market, and so we can't sort of rely on just purely, hey, here's all the wonderful things you can do with us, because people are coming and looking for it. And so that's where things like, we focused a lot more on things like Chalk Talks and other things that are much more educational to help build the market. And there's a little bit of fear in that we have to instill the fear of, it's almost the fear of missing out. In our case, it is, if you don't embrace this and you don't, use a tool like ours, where are you going to be 2-3 years from now?
Really
and to help sort of peel that back. Yeah. So I think it's a delicate balance. We do a bit of both. We certainly do sort of inspirational and aspirational positioning, but a lot more of it is purely educational, which I think is actually a little bit different from the other two. And it's really about seeding those ideas in the market and building the demand for what we do. So again, I think it really depends. You have to understand your market and know what's the maturity of the market. What are the questions people are asking? Is it a push or pull market? And those things might sway sort of how you tell your story.
Yeah, I really like this, your comment about this, because as you said, the brand equity of Apple is much higher. So it's much easier for them to play on empowerment than when you're completely unknown. And actually, I use in our workshops the example of your buddies from Terminus that really, had a commodity platform, basically B2B account-based marketing, but instead of, waving the flag of their platform, which was a commodity, they focused on the problem. And by focusing on the problem, that whole flip my funnel movement emerged, and all of a sudden they become more authoritative and trustworthy. So this exercise, we see it a lot in market. So one thing that probably now could bring this the importance of video storytelling home. Maybe if you can give us, 1 or 2 examples of good video storytelling use cases you really like.
Yeah, there's so in the B2B world, there's a couple things that I think are great examples. One, which I've seen a number of companies do well, and I mentioned earlier, is using humor at the top of the funnel to stand out a little bit, almost to it's still unexpected with a lot of B2B companies, and it can go a long way to, again, building a more kind of personal brand with people. And there's a few really quick examples. I know one of my favorites from a couple years ago was really simple, but it just like hit home for me, was Hootsuite, the social media platform company. They actually did a couple of videos in a short stint that really got my attention. One was they were launching a new product, and instead of just coming out and saying, here's the new product and here's what it does, they did a quick video doing a parody of Jimmy Kimmel's Mean Tweets skit that he does on his late night show. And in Mean Tweets, he has celebrities read mean tweets about themselves, and it's very comedic. And so in this case, they said, well, as part of the new product, we want to show how we're solving some of the issues people have had in the past. And so they actually had their own employees and their executives read mean social media posts about the previous version of their product that people didn't like. And they did it in a very humorous sort of tone. And even their CEO was standing there reading, your interface looks like, and I won't say it, say it again here, because they actually had to bleep it out. And it created this very comedic sort of position. And it was only the last 15 seconds of the video where it cut to, and here's what we're doing to solve these issues you've had in the past, and you see these quick hits. And it was just one of those ones where, again, I like it. It quote unquote went viral. I don't like saying that in B2B, but it's one of those ones that are across their audience. And I talked to them about it. They said it was a huge hit, and their customers were sharing it around with others, partly because it really hit home with them, and they found that humor really worked, and it was a fun way to tell that story. Another great one, the second one I'll share, is one of our customers, Lenovo, their B2B business that sells rugged laptops and things into enterprises. They found, they did this great visual storytelling program where they found one of the big issues or one of the things that their IT people, their audience, really liked was sharing stories about others in the office who are like the people who break things, right? So it's like, oh, Chuck, he's that guy who always drops his laptop, and the other IT person's like, oh yes, my Chuck is John. He does that all the time, right? They found this sort of fun underground sort of
It's
thing that was
relatable.
fun, very relatable. And so they created this whole users happen campaign where they did infographics, they did videos about, you know, this idea of users happen. And you as an IT person need to do everything you can to deal with that. And they did a series of really fun videos. If you Google Lenovo users happen, you'll find it. And the last one they did was actually a 2.5 minute long rap video that was like a parody for IT people, called I Fixed It. And it positioned the IT person as the hero in this company, but it's so unexpected where they get up and they actually deliver this whole rap song. Very funny, really well scripted, really well done. And it was just one of those ones where it was like, again, they saw some really great responses from it. And they actually did a version where they did a personalized version where they sent it out to a few 100,000 people in their own database. And each person got a personalized version of the video where their own name was actually brought into the video, or their own company name. And so it was like a double impact where this IT person would get this video and there's like a poster on the wall that says, you know, keep calm, like, and your name. And it was like, wait a minute, that's me. And they literally kind of brought them into the story in a fun way. So again, a couple of great examples there. If you those, you know, Hootsuite meme tweets or Lenovo users happen, you'll find those out there, guys.
Yeah, it sounds like both examples that you just described, they all kind of anchored on the principle of kind of borrowing from a complete different domain that is super hot, like the tweets, and then exaggerating it in the domain that you're focusing on,
right?
Kind of almost like newsjacking in a way.
Yep.
You're kind of getting a lot of steam from the hot experience from a different domain, and you apply it to your context, and that's how you can create something people already, you know, familiar with. They appreciate it, and they can see the value now. So this is our fantastic examples.
That's great.
One of the things that, you know, kind of before we close, you know, looking ahead, you know, for the future, you know, there's a lot of talk about VR and AR coming around the corner. Where do you see video storytelling transforming in the future?
Yeah, it's really interesting, right? And it's I think the short answer is I don't know. It's hard to say, but things like VR and AR are. I think there's no doubt that they're going to have a pretty significant impact in what we can do as businesses to engage our audiences in new and creative ways. And I think it will manifest itself very differently for B2C companies versus B2B companies. You know, but I think in the long run, there's a lot of interesting opportunity. I know even in the B2B world, we've been, you know, hearing from clients, you know, doing some interesting things and expecting to do some more interesting things, particularly with VR. We still have the challenge today of course, our audience has to be equipped to handle a VR experience.
But even in the lower rank, I would think, are you guys doing anything on the 360 video?
We do, yeah. So as a video platform, we support things like 360 video natively within the platform. And we are finding that in the B2B world, what we're starting to see is using that for, again, sharing, you know, experiential kind of creative experiences around perhaps live events that they're doing or other things like that. I'm excited to see where it goes. It's very early, and I still haven't seen those use cases that are like, that's it. That's going to like drive the business. But I think it's like anything, right? It's in the early days where we're tinkering with it and kind of learning how it works and you know, what the opportunity might be around it. But I think merging those, you know, VR 360, those kinds of things, we're at least starting to get the creative juices going. And I'd say for most companies, you know, it's good to start learning about it. Don't feel like you have to jump on the bandwagon quite yet. But let it start to fuel some ideas about how might you tell stories to your audience in different ways. What kind of creative expression will this give you the opportunity to exploit? And perhaps the last point here is looking ahead, what types of talent and people do you need in your business? And back to that point earlier of becoming a media company, like we've been saying this for years as well, is every company, you know, whether you're B2B, B2C, financial services, gaming, I don't care, has to start thinking and acting like a media company. And a lot of these things are part of that. So what kind of talent, what kind of people are you going to need in the next, you know, today or in the next couple of years that are going to help fuel that and perhaps, and I hate to say this, but reduce your dependency on agencies to become a much more creative house yourself. Yeah,
and I'm sure it's kind of an interesting transition for there's a lot of talk about the journalism kind of on the decline. So I can definitely see a whole new future for journalists in
Absolutely.
the marketing side, just creating amazing content and stories because they have the talents.
Yep. Yeah, the in-house, the journalists, the creative directors, right, video producers. I think we've seen a huge trend over the last couple of years of that stuff coming in-house in more progressive companies, and I think it's a great opportunity for a lot of people because the value of being able to do that within a company and be able to focus on a specific line of business and get really deep in it, I think is a great opportunity for a lot of people where you can really exercise your traditional journalistic skills, your creative skills, and rather than doing a lot of breadth of things, you can go really deep on a very specific narrative and do some really creative things. So I hope to see that a big part of the future of business.
No, so this has been a fantastic conversation. I really enjoyed it. So if we want to summarize, what would you say like the top 3 simple tips you can give marketers to get started on the high for 2018 with video?
Yeah, I think in the, so I'll keep it to the B2B world, but it's probably applicable to anybody. I think first is, think about, obviously understand what narrative or story you're trying to build and be explicitly thoughtful about where and how video can help drive that narrative forward. Don't just wait until the end to say, oh yeah, video could help there. Be explicit about that and think about, where it can help tell your story. I think secondly, if you're not doing so already, start trying to do some video production in-house. If you're entirely dependent on third-party agencies and freelancers, it's very difficult to scale. Maybe ask around your office. There's a good chance there are people who, do some video editing on the side and people who have decent cameras that you can start to get going. So I think, understand where it fits, start to build up your internal muscle with respect to creating video content. And then I think finally, start to build out a proactive plan for where it fits in your buyer's journey. And so, maybe 12 months from now, you're not looking back and saying, oh, I wish we had done this or that. Build a roadmap and be serious about it. And don't think video will just happen because it happens. You have to be explicit about it. You got to think about it and build up the skills. So to summarize all of that, just do it.
Awesome. Great stuff. So how can our viewers contact you if they want to ask more questions and be in touch?
Yeah, so you can, of course, find me on LinkedIn. I'm at Tyler Lessard. You can find me on Twitter as well at Tyler Lessard, and check out vidyard.com. And, feel free to browse around on there. I think on our website, not only is there great information about, of course, what we do, but I think there's a lot of good examples for how we do video on our own website, on our blog, things like Chalk Talk. So feel free to snoop around on there to see some of the things that our own marketing team here does as an example. And of course, feel free to sign up for our newsletters and such to see all the other kinds of videos we share out there. So I think those are the best ways. And again, hopefully there's some inspiration for all of you.
Thank you so much, Tyler. It's been a fantastic conversation, and I wish you a fantastic 2018. And, let's get control of our narrative.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And really enjoyed it. And all the best to your 2018 as well.
Thank you.